welcome back to the Pelvic Empowerment IBS series. My name is Tori and I am a doctor of physical therapy who specializes in pelvic dysfunction, which means I treat things that can go wrong around the pelvis, and this includes bowel dysfunction. In May of this year, I decided to do my best to try and unpack everything that I've learned about IBS in a video series. And today I wanted to add a fifth installment in that series that builds on my other videos but really focuses on the differences between soluble and insoluble fibers. In today's video, we'll first discuss an overview of fiber in general before breaking down more specifically the true differences between soluble and insoluble fiber. We'll then do a quick review of your digestive system and really focus in on the gastrocolic reflex and peristalsis. And we'll end by talking about how soluble and insoluble fiber can affect diarrhea dominant, constipation dominant, and mixed IBS symptoms. As always, you can check the description below for timestamps and links to all of the previous videos in this series. And without further ado, let's get started by talking first about fiber in general. So fiber is a type of carbohydrate that is found in plant-based foods only that is not digestible by humans. We can't digest it because we don't make the right kinds of enzymes to break it down, which means any kind of fiber, soluble or insoluble, is not broken down and not absorbed in our digestive tracts. Instead, fiber passes through our digestive system relatively unscathed. Now, the main difference between soluble fiber and insoluble fiber is their relationship with water. Soluble fiber attracts and absorbs water, which turns it into a mushy gel-like substance as it makes its way through our intestines. Think about what happens when you add water to oatmeal and use that visual to imagine soluble fiber absorbing water and swelling into a mushy, toothpastey, gel-like substance as it moves through your intestines. Insoluble fiber, on the other hand, doesn't absorb water. In fact, it repels water, which means it passes through your digestive system relatively close to its original form. Think about what happens when you add water to celery, for instance. Really close to nothing about the celery changes. I think we can all think of personal experiences that demonstrate this phenomenon, such as eating high-fiber veggies like leafy green roughage or corn and then seeing bits of these undigested foods in our poop later. Most plant-based foods contain a combination of soluble and insoluble fiber. They just tend to be more rich in one than they are in the other. When we think of fibrous foods, we're usually thinking of foods that are high in insoluble fiber. Foods that are rough, stringy, or have a tough skin, like greens, veggies, nuts, seeds, legumes. These are all examples of foods that are high in insoluble fiber. Soluble fiber, on the other hand, is found in high concentrations in foods that we typically call starches, things like rice and potatoes and yams. Now that we've discussed an overview of fiber and talked a little bit more about the differences between insoluble and soluble fiber, we need to understand our digestive tracts before we can make sense of how these different fibers can affect IBS symptoms. In the very first installment of this series, we introduced the gastrocolic reflex and talked a lot about how the GI system works. I want to review that again and really focus in on that intestinal movement. Recall that if we follow food from mouth to bowel movement, it goes in your mouth, you chew it up, it goes down your esophagus, into your stomach, into your small intestines, into your large intestines, into the rectum, and then eventually through the anus and out into the world as a bowel movement. But what happens specifically in your intestines? They move. They rhythmically contract and relax to propel food and eventually waste through them. That's how waste eventually ends up in your rectum and then in the toilet. These rhythmic contractions are called called peristalsis, and they look a whole lot like when a snake eats a mouse. Remember that this intestinal muscular movement is not under your voluntary control, much like you don't have voluntary control over your heart muscles. Instead, there's a reflex called the gastrocolic reflex that stimulates peristalsis, or that rhythmic contraction of the intestines. Now, let's really zoom in to that intestinal muscular movement. I want you to imagine your intestines as a singular muscular tube. Regular healthy bowel movements depend on the adequate filling of that tube and the soft consistency of that food-stool mixture within the tube. When the tube is adequately filled, the muscles that surround the tube are stimulated via stretch to start performing that peristalsis, that rhythmic contraction. When the tube is adequately filled with the soft consistency of that food-stool mixture, well, then the muscles have something easy to grip, easy to hold on to as they perform their rhythmic contractions. Why is this so important to review? Because understanding the gastrocolic reflex and peristalsis will make sense of how fiber can affect IBS symptoms. With this review under our belts, we can now talk about soluble fiber and how it affects IBS. IBS usually presents in 3 different ways. There's diarrhea dominant, constipation dominant, and then mixed symptomology. The absolutely incredible thing about soluble fiber is that in theory, it should help to normalize both diarrhea and constipation. And I want you to understand why. Let's first break down why soluble fiber would help with diarrhea. If you think back to that intestinal muscular tube that we introduced earlier, when someone has diarrhea, the muscles around the tube really don't have anything to easily grip onto. And so you end up with a super fast transit time and really explosive bowel movements. Recall that soluble fiber attracts water. This means it would absorb excess liquid in the intestines, which would replace diarrhea with that thick, mushy, toothpastey, gel-like substance that we were talking about earlier. This substance keeps the intestinal muscular tube gently stretched and gives those muscles something easy to grip onto. This slows down the otherwise rapid transit time associated with diarrhea and also helps to prevent the explosive bowel movements associated with diarrhea. If that makes sense, then why would soluble fiber also help so much with constipation? When someone is constipated, if you imagine again that intestinal muscular tube, the intestinal muscles are often clenched and contracted around dry, hard, and impacted stool. And you end up with really slow transit time, bloat, and hard, challenging bowel movements. In this scenario, recall again that soluble fiber attracts water. So that thick, mushy, toothpastey, gel-like substance would soften, push through, and break apart otherwise dry, hard, and compacted stool. It would also give the intestinal muscular tube that same gentle stretch and something much easier to grip onto than the hard, dry stool that we were talking about. This means a faster transit time, and it also means softer stool and easier bowel movements. So in conclusion, soluble fiber is great, but what about insoluble fiber? There is a little bit of a catch with insoluble fiber. On one hand, insoluble fiber is incredibly good for you. Some of the healthiest foods of all time include high concentrations of insoluble fiber. On the other hand, insoluble fiber is a really powerful gastrocolic reflex stimulant, kind of like fat, which we discussed in great detail in the second installment of this video series. So what does that information mean for someone who's trying to manage her IBS symptoms through diet? I will explain that in great detail in the next installment of this series, where we will be tying in everything that we've discussed in the previous 5 videos and outlining specific dietary considerations for IBS symptom management. On that note, thank you all so much for watching. I am so honored and excited to be creating this series for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for watching watching, commenting, and requesting. As I mentioned, the next video in this series will hopefully tie the previous 5 videos into a neat little bow and talk about specific IBS symptom management through diet. I am also intending to create videos in this series that discuss the relationship between IBS and SIBO, IBS and FODMAPs, IBS and stress, mood, and anxiety, as well as sleep and exercise. I also plan on covering treatment options for IBS, like pharmaceutical management, especially through medications like Linzess and Trulance, as well as fecal transplants and alternative medicines that exist. But if you have a different topic related to IBS that you would like to see me cover in this series, please request it in the comments below. I do try really hard to read and respond to all of my comments. Please, if you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it. And finally, don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more content, not only surrounding pelvic things, but also about life things. Speaking of life things, the background behind me, these are actually solar panels that Keith and I are intending to put on top of the RV that we just purchased, who we will be living out of full time, probably starting in April of next year. I will make a video introducing you to the RV. Her name is Daisy, in the near future. Anyway, also don't forget to check me out on Instagram, and thank you all so much again for watching. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.